All right, welcome to our next video in our series on programming in Java. This is the third fraction calculator video. In this video, we're going to talk about how to bring addition to your program. You should have completed checkpoints 1 and 2 already. Checkpoint 1 is a user input loop where we are either echoing an input unless it was quit. If it was quit, we terminated the program. In checkpoint 2, we were taking in the 3 tokens given from the user, which were a number, an operator, another number. And regardless of the format of that number, whether it was a whole number, a proper fraction, or a mixed number, we converted everything into a proper fraction. So now we're at a place in our code where we have a number, addition, and another number. We should be able to add those things together. So a sample execution that you're going to see in the PDF document is if we add 1 and 3, the program will think that that's 4, or what's 4 over 1. We are not yet concerned about reducing our answers if our answers could be reduced. We are not yet concerned about removing the over 1 if our answer is a whole number. So we've got 1 plus 3 is 4. 2.5 plus 4/5 is 33/10. Notice how we found the common denominator and added things together. We do still need to be able to handle negative values. So 1/2 plus -3 is -5/2. And as usual, the old functionality must still work in that if we say quit, we should leave the program. This is how the points shake out. You can review the PDF to see how that works. Something I want to emphasize is that regardless of whatever position our number is in, we have to be able to handle the addition. So if it's a whole number on the left and a mixed on the right, the addition needs to work. If it's a mixed on the left and a whole number on the right, the addition needs to work. That's one of the reasons why checkpoint 2, its mission was to standardize those inputs so we know what we're dealing with so we can count on that. So let me show my code. Well, I can't show the code. I mean, obviously that's for you guys to do. But let me show a sample execution of a checkpoint 3, the addition checkpoint that's working. Maybe we do 22 plus 7, and that gives you 29/2. Maybe we do 13 1/3 plus 1, and that gives you 43/3. That kind of makes sense, right? 43/3. How about -4/5 plus, 2. That gives us 6/5. So you see that we don't worry about /1 right now. That's not a requirement for this checkpoint. If I had done something that needed to be reduced, let's do an example of something that needs to be reduced. 2/4 plus 1/2. So that gives us 8/8. We all know that's 1. But for this checkpoint, we're not going to be worried about reducing just yet. I can say quit, and the program ends. So what's the strategy here? What's the plan? Let's go back to our pseudocode document. We have checkpoint 2 is about standardizing inputs. Checkpoint 3 is about addition. And we have a class. We have a main method, greeting the user, fire up a Boolean and a scanner, get that user input loop going, get information from the user, and if it was quit, we turn our Boolean to false and we say goodbye. But if it wasn't quit, then we can make the assumption that the user wants us to do some math. And remember what we said in the last video, which is you can assume a valid input, which means a number, a space, an operator, a space, and a number. All right, so we talked about scanner versus substring. I hope you all chose the scanner method. But at this point, you should be holding the 3 tokens, number 1, operator, and number 2. And hopefully you used a convert method or something similarly clean to convert number 1 and number 2 to the proper format. And now this is the part where we have to implement checkpoint 3. So the first part of our else statement was checkpoint 2, standardizing the inputs. Now that the inputs are standardized, we need to do checkpoint 3. All right, so what we should be looking at right here is you've got num1, and num2. And we are going to just assume that the operator is plus for right now. In the final video, in the final checkpoint, final project, We are going to handle what happens if it's not plus, what if it's minus or multiply or divide. But for right now, we're just going to assume that that operator is plus. To me, one of the requirements of this project is that we not let any of our methods get too big. And I'm willing to bet that the main method for your program right now, maybe it has 25, 30, maybe it's got even 40 lines of code in it. If I try to build the math part of my code into the main method here, it's going to just kind of feel big and clunky. So what I like to do is if I have all the information I need to do the math, I like to make a separate math method whose job it is to just handle the math. So we know, I'm going to this say goodbye to user. I'm going to make this a part of if quit was said. I think that makes it a little cleaner. So we've converted everything. Then I think I'm going to make a method. I'm going to call that method math, and I'm going to pass in as parameters these three strings: number one, number two, and operator. Right. So we already have a convert method. Let me go ahead and define the math method right here. Math method's job is to take two numbers and perform the math. And again, we are going to start by assuming that it's addition. So the math method that we've got, it takes two numbers really and an operator. I should say it takes two numbers and an operator. All right, so take yourself back to your math class back in late elementary, early middle. Is that when? It's probably actually more mid elementary to late elementary. Is how do we learn how to add fractions together? Which, as somebody that taught math for a lot of years in a high school, I respect that even though we might have started learning math fractions in, I'm guessing, 4th, 5th grade, it's something that high schoolers struggle with. It's something that plenty of adults struggle with. So let's revisit the concept. If I have two fractions to add together, I'm not allowed to add them together until they have a common denominator. And what that means is I have to convert both fractions into equivalent fractions that have a common denominator. But what that means is each numerator has to get changed as well. So I would say your first task is going to be to remove or to get the numerator and denominator from each fraction. So you can use substring to pull out all those parts, right? So that's your first task. Then you got to make sure to convert the strings to ints. We talked about that before. We can use integer.parseInt to convert ints to strings. I think that was a technique that we used, in our convert method. So then you have to do the math, right? So you're going to be doing a variety of like multiplications and addition to do the math, because your objective here is going to be to get the new numerator and the new denominator. And then what I would do is I would make sure that this method returns a string, and I would concatenate together your new numerator and your new denominator, right? At this point, we're not checking to see if it was addition. We are just assuming it was addition. And in the next checkpoint, we will care about asking what the operator is. So get the numerator and denominator of each fraction, convert your strings to ints, do the math, and then return that string back up here. So then your job will be once math is done, you might need to save that to a string. I don't know, like string result equals your math method call. And then I would say print results right here. That's what I would do. Those are my tips and tricks for how to get addition in fraction calculator. As always, if you're stuck, if you need something, send me an email. Thanks for watching.